Harrison Price for Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, for a presentation of Bet365. At Bet365, boring games, the thing of the past. Now, there's always a reason to tune in, even if the score isn't one of them. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Mansick Harrison alongside Jeff Paterson, who's sitting in for Blake Price this week. 4-time Juno Award winner, 2-time provincial basketball champion, and world log rolling titleist Mike Rogerson. Hitting switches and conducting things. Good day. How are you? How was your long weekend? Good to see you and have you in the studio this week.
No, it's always good to be in here. Long weekend was pretty uneventful. Played a little bit of golf. Dodged a few raindrops along the way, but overall just took it easy. A little lawn care and yard work, the essentials.
And fighting off bears. I hear it's a big bear season in Lynn Valley.
We've been
the photo you published last week on social. That is the fattest bear I've ever seen in my life,
That's
Jeff.
a big boy.
It is getting fat on the Lynn Valley garbage, is it not?
We've been there 16 years in the same house and have never seen a month. We've got the street WhatsApp group chat, and it's just constant. Like, bear on the street, bear on the street. Probably the same bear, but I don't know that.
There was no mistaking this chunk.
Well,
that is a big bear.
Right. And so that guy has been in both our backyard and our front yard. And you may ask, well, all right, don't you have fences? Yeah, we got fences.
Stood no
to gain
chance.
access to the backyard, this guy plowed through, came from the neighbors, and put a hole in the fence. So a week ago, I had to do some fence mending. Fortunately, but he couldn't just leave through the hole that he had created. No, he had to go to the other side, the other fence. That one, he just popped off some boards, and that was easy work.
They're bad dinner guests. Everybody says this.
But, it's been a while. And it's
better
early.
the front yard and the backyard than him trying to push through the other door, Jeff. You don't want him in the house.
No question.
Mm-hmm. You've seen those videos of bears taking down cabins, like getting into cabins?
Yeah,
and then
once they get into cars...
Oh...
and then just destroy the car.
And they're getting
they can't
smarter.
Get back
they're
out.
getting smarter.
Yeah.
They're learning how to open doors. The damnedest thing.
Anyways, they're great to look at, generally when they're in the neighbor's yard.
Yeah. Marvelous weekend for me. I was lucky enough to be part of the 40,000 people who were at BC Place for the big Whitecaps LAFC match.
It looked like an event.
On Saturday. It is an event, and you know how this town feels about events, so people came out. Needless to say, the Korean community was there supporting Sonny. All the Caps fans back at BC Place for the first time in 3+ months. End of April was the last time that the Whitecaps played a home match at BC Place. 1-1 draw. Sonny scored. Beautiful goal. Big reaction. Thomas Muller scored. Man of the match. Good to see him back on form. Got to a couple of Vancouver Canadians games. We got to the Canadian Club on Thursday, the new patio in right field.
That was fun.
Which was absolutely gorgeous. What a fun night out that is for your workplace or your sports team. Look into it. It's fully booked for this year. Now, there are 125 reserve standing area spaces up there. You just need a game ticket. So, I know there's ushers there and a staircase. Don't be daunted. If you got a game ticket, you can walk right up and observe the game from that overhead advanced view down the right field line. So check that on out. And made it to a second Canadians game on the weekend as well. Also played some golf. And
I'm always reminded when we get to August, though, that this is it for the C's, the short season. It's the final month now. 12
home games left.
Yeah.
And today we woke up to a little bit of smoke in BC. So hope everyone is staying safe with those some of the images coming out of Vernon late last week were absolutely terrifying. So hope wherever you are in BC, you are staying safe and heeding warnings about this wildfire season. Let's hope what smoke we do have today dissipates. Okay, we'll get right into it. Our top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Yellow Dog Spirits, and Foolish Winery, and I'll be getting to Yellow Dog and Neighborhood in downtown Penticton next week. We'll also probably get to their stops at the Oliver Wine Village. What a fantastic facility that is in our province.
Nice. Yeah, a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, big hit. If you've got a wine drinker in the family, you have to take them to the Oliver Wine Village. I mean, I'm starting to see like bachelorette parties there, like, you know, full on. They get music, great music. It's an awesome spot to be. Renderings bring real concerns. Nothing comes easy with the Canucks in a practice facility, of course, and just days after the club announced plans with Britannia and the city of Vancouver, there is already community pushback. Now, here is the look at the renderings and the facility that the Vancouver Canucks are looking to build. This would be adjacent to the Britannia ice rink, a 5-story attached addition, replacing some parking. Now, herein lies the problem. Here are all the photos that they were made available in their release for your perusal. Jeff, just thoughts here before we move on into the concerns. Do you like what you're seeing in terms of what the Canucks released there?
Well, my initial reaction when I saw the press release come into my inbox was, all right, here we go. And then as I read through, a lot of words, Matt, a lot of words that didn't say an awful lot. Like our buddy Irf had all these same details on March the 11th. Yeah. And so I kept reading through, like, what's new here? What's new here? And
now, of course, they got scooped. That wasn't their announcement. That was Irf. But yeah, you would have thought
that was
in
March. This is August.
That's right.
And
it's 4 or 5 months.
There would be some advancements of this story. You know, Ken Sim playing his favorite game of how many memorandums of understanding can you have? Felt like a fair bit of election year politicking on one level from the city side. You know,
civic
look at us.
Election this fall.
Look at us. We're making things happen with the Whitecaps, kind of, maybe. We're making things happen with the Canucks, maybe. We'll see. And then, of course, as I looked at the renderings, I was like, that's it? Like, you're essentially taking 15 parking spots and building up, but it's an attached building to the existing Britannia ice arena. So,
and I understand that there are some of you who are out there saying, you guys in the media and Canucks fans on social media have been banging the drum for practice facility forever, and I do think you can argue they've basically been shamed into this. And now that they announce plans, now we're nitpicking, now we're killing them and crucifying them for this, that, or the other things. But it's a question of, do you understand the exercise, or are you just whipping something together to get people off your backs and show that you're making, is it an optics exercise?
Right.
Here,
so
because
the addition, this proposed 5-story attachment, sure, it can have a locker room, it can have a player's lounge, it can have training facilities, gym,
rehab,
underground parking. It can have some city office space above. Apparently, that's part of the deal as well. So it can house all these things, but it just feels like the bare minimum to get by, as you said, to say, hey, like, here's our practice facility that you've all been demanding. Meanwhile, around the National Hockey League, there are all sorts of practice facilities with bells and whistles and 3 sheets of ice.
Well, and there you just hit it, Jeff, because like in terms of how much you ball out, like Harman Dial was on the show last week and saying, you know, NHL teams have come to ball out with these facilities that basically spruce them up, make them as attractive as possible, not just for your existing players, but of course for free agents and agents down the road to consider your team. That it's a show, a sign of how serious you are as an NHL owner-operator. But sheets of ice are core to the practice facility. And from the moment Irf had the story in March, you know, people were skeptical because of the Britannia footprint there. Oh, okay, like where are they putting another sheet of ice? And when you saw the 5-story building, I don't know about you, but I thought, oh, okay, well, there's going to be an additional sheet of ice built upwards, you know, this happens. Is it the Capitals who have?
The Capitals, the top level of a parkade at a mall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unused space. The parkade would be there, but they elected to build on top of it, and it's terrific. And it's got every amenity that the Washington Capitals need.
Detroit Red Wings have gone fully underground for their practice facility with an additional sheet of ice. Nowhere in the Canucks release or in their renderings does it show a plan to build a new sheet of ice. And as many are saying, that would seem an important detail you would mention if you were planning on it. Well, sure enough. Joint statement from local minor hockey associations. They're concerned about this Canucks practice facility. This is the Vancouver Angels, the Vancouver Thunderbirds, and Vancouver Minor Hockey Association. Say they're disappointed by the report that the city of Vancouver and the Canucks are exploring building a practice facility that could leverage an existing community rink at Britannia without creating desperately needed new ice capacity. And the statement goes on quite ambitiously and acknowledges that it's ambitious to recommend a multi-sheet complex like the Seattle Kraken have. And they even suggest the location, the northwest corner of the PNE grounds. This would be right where the Pacific Coliseum is. It's a big parking lot right now. It doesn't even get into the Hastings Racecourse footprint, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, you've got the Vancouver Golden Knights of the PWHL who play in the Pacific Coliseum and right now use the Agrodome as its practice facility. But the bottom line is what Vancouver Minor Hockey, the Angels and the Thunderbirds are saying is they're concerned about kids losing ice time to the Vancouver Canucks and NHL partners who come through town requiring the one sheet of ice at Britannia. And it's a legitimate concern.
Sure.
And it's such a legitimate concern that one has to have questions for Mayor Sim, the city, and the Canucks about displacing young hockey players. Would seem to be a bad PR move, Jeff.
Yeah. And again, this was just a press release on a Friday heading into a long weekend. And nobody was put up to speak.
It was Thursday.
Okay, it was Thursday. But yeah, it was just, a written statement. Nobody was put up to speak to it, to answer any of these questions. And so, it's not a concern that's been addressed publicly by anybody. Jim Rutherford, when he was on the file, now that it seems like it's fallen into the laps of Daniel and Henrik Sedin. I think Daniel was the one quoted in the press release and on the city side as well. It's
a
question that has to be answered without a doubt. So,
and you say you're turning over a new community leaf. It's one thing to say that. People want to see it in actions. This would be same old, both on the practice facility spire, which needless to say, that's been a saga, but also in terms of the way the club has typically done business during this decade of darkness, and particularly recently when they lost their way with the community. So, look, I'm agnostic. If you can build this facility, add another ice sheet, and it's at Britannia, great. If you want to build a facility on the northwest corner of the PNE grounds near the Pacific Coliseum, and if the Golden Knights can participate in that as well, fantastic. But let's make sure we increase the ice time opportunities for kids in the city of Vancouver. We're talking decades since the last rink, since the last significant investment in ice time within the confines of the city of Vancouver has been part of the civic plan.
Well, and others have pointed this out, and I think it's a great point. Like, I don't know if the Aquilinis are going to own the Vancouver Canucks forever, like if the team's going to stay in the family forever, or if they'll reach a point where they want to cash out. But if they want to cement their legacy in this city, do the right thing.
Right.
Expand some ice, put your name on it, and it can be used by people for decades to come. And you won't be forgotten.
No.
Your name will be there above the door as people make their way in to skate on the Aquilini family ice surface or practice facility or arena, whatever you want to call it. But I do think it would be a great way to cement the legacy of a family whose legacy is complicated.
Yeah. Anyways, we're going to get to more on this story in a minute. First, let me tell you, Yellow Dog Brewing has released Play Date Apricot and Guava White Sour. The Play Date series is back for its 6th release, bringing the throwback vibes with fresh new flavor combos. Play Date Apricot Guava Sour. Bright, juicy, just the right amount of trouble, blending smooth apricot sweetness with tropical guava and crisp tart finish. The Playdate Apricot and Guava White Sour from Yellow Dog Brewing. Okay, that brings us to our Nation Gear poll question. Jeff, do you believe the Canucks will get the Britannia practice facility built? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the S&P X and YouTube channels. Where are you at on this, partner?
I'm going to vote no, that it won't get built as proposed. I think there's going to be all kinds of them. We're already seeing it. But I think that opposition will grow until some of these questions are answered and assurances are granted. And the easiest way would be to expand the footprint and find a way to twin the sheets of ice there or whatever. So, it's a broad question, obviously. But I'm saying, based on the news of the weekend and what we've seen, that they're going to struggle to move this proposal forward.
In one sense, I'm more troubled by this on the city side of things than the Canucks, because for the Canucks, it's just the same old, same old. They're trying to do it on the cheap. They're trying to, find partners who are basically going to let them win the deal. On the city side of thing, you made the point. Patrick Johnson's on later. He'll make the point as well about sports washing. Politicians really like to cozy up to sports teams, particularly popular sports teams. And the Canucks are, popular ancestrally, but I think a little more popular since the announcement of the Sedins and Ryan Johnson and the commitment to the rebuild than they were previous. But how does this get through the city folk where they go, someone surely at some point had to say, Mayor Sim, if there's not an additional ice sheet there, that means Vancouver minor hockey may lose access to ice time. You want that in an election cycle? How did that get through? I mean, I know the ABC and Mayor Sim and ABC, there was the flip-flop last week on this Villages project, right? They were big on the Villages 3 years ago. The city staff went out and studied it for 3 years, came back and said, okay, well, we've got some concerns. And the next thing you know, they all voted against it, which for some was, wow, that's a colossal waste of time and money. So I don't know if they're just comfortable flip-flopping, but surely at some point, Mayor Sim's going to be asked about Vancouver minor hockey thinks they're going to lose access to ice with this Canucks project and MOU that you announced. I'm just not sure that's politically viable for him going forward.
And minor hockey is the first group we've heard from. I don't have a full understanding of every program that is offered at Britannia, but you're looking at Learn to Skate. Are there figure skating groups that use that ice?
Point.
Stick and puck, just recreational, public skate, whatever. So
sledge, there could be all sorts of things that go on there. Yeah. I'm with you. I voted no as currently proposed. Now, it may well be it's as simple as the Canucks say, okay, we'll add a 6-story and we'll add an ice sheet.
Well, I sort of wondered if this was any kind of trial balloon, right? Let's float this, see how it goes over. Yeah. Not our final offer.
And if there's enough public pushback, then we'll buck up and build the other sheet. Anyways, vote at the S&P X and YouTube channels. If you've spent any amount of time on baseball social media, you've probably heard of the 999 challenge, 9 innings, 9 hot dogs, 9 beers. Jeff was almost there Thursday night at a few hot dogs short, right, Jeff?
Yes, it was on the hot dog side that I fell short.
Yeah. Now, we're not saying you have to complete it, but we are saying you can look really good while you try. We've teamed up with the Nation Network and Levelware to launch the Perfect 9 collection, a limited edition lineup inspired by one of baseball's most legendary game day traditions. This isn't your average merch either. Premium fabrics, modern fits, gear you'll actually wear long after baseball season ends, whether you're heading to the ballpark, catching the game on the patio, or just want everyone to know you're a serious student of baseball culture. The Perfect 9 collection has you covered. It's only available for a limited time, so grab yours before it's gone at nationgear.ca. And if you do attempt the challenge, we want a full scouting report and preferably some video of that 9th hot dog.
The clincher.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there's the group of us.
We almost did it.
Yeah, quite a few beer on that table. Look at that. Boy, Jeff's personal collection. Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't even make the photo.
I guess. 9 hot dogs, 9 beers here in the restroom.
I was over on
in
the
the
side.
restroom a lot.
Just out of frame, not quite feeling my freshest.
Okay, the other big story that came about over the course of the weekend involves Vancouver Whitecaps FC and who is bidding to own this team from MLS. Dan Murphy. And as he points out, noted soccer guy here, I've been told that former Canucks owner Arthur Griffiths is heading a group that has put in a formal offer to purchase Whitecaps FC. Nathan Cadell of the Georgia Straight, incidentally, reported in May that Griffiths has interest in being a part of the next group. Cadell said one source said that while they had heard that Griffiths was interested, they didn't know where the money would come from. Another said that Griffiths is working with an international group. Somebody mentioned to me last week that Arthur had a group together and a bid together. I got some pushback when I was checking that out with others, and granted, not with Arthur. First thing I think everybody has to understand is while the Griffiths family did, yes, once upon a time own the Canucks and the Grizzlies, it was literally a mom and pop operation. Sports franchise ownership has changed an awful lot in the intervening, 20, 30 years. So while everyone may look at Arthur and say, oh, there's a rich guy, okay, but Arthur's not the money here, right? Like, no. I'm not even sure the Griffiths family back then would have been the money, but certainly Arthur personally is not the money. So while he may head a group like Zach Ross, who's doing on the baseball side of things, the financing will be key here. Arthur is not a part of the local group that Blake and I are aware of and have been talking about on this program for some time. There is a collaboration association loosely of wealthy people in this town who are looking at this, but I was told from my source in that group that no, Arthur is not a part of the group as far as he knows. One person told me there's been a local bid on the Caps that has already been rejected by MLS. So I'm having trouble pinning down where the money is coming from with Arthur. Now, look, Arthur is a very good and civically minded person who's involved in community efforts. He's a terrific Vancouver sports person. I'm sure he would be devastated, as we all would, if the Whitecaps had to relocate. And, of course, Arthur has been there before, right? Because, unfortunately, the Vancouver Grizzlies, which he had to sell, ultimately left town as well. So I can understand if Arthur wants to pursue things that might compensate for the lack of the Grizzlies in the NBA all those years ago. But I thus far, outside of one source, have not been, and I've talked to a multitude of people over the weekend, have not been able to tell just how serious this bid is.
The Griffith name is a great heritage and legacy name in this city.
No
and
question.
I think that carries some weight.
Yep, should.
But as you said, like sports ownership then and sports ownership now, certainly the finances have changed. I mean, perhaps the principles of operating successfully, carry from generation to generation. So, I mean, Arthur would have institutional knowledge of how to operate, and we don't ultimately know, what role he wants to have in this. Is he just being put up as a familiar face and name in this city at this point? So, yeah, again, lots of unanswered questions here. I mean, I think it's a positive to start to see some local groups make their presence felt, but how serious, how legitimate, we just don't know. We know that there's a significant vetting process. On the Whitecap side.
So there's a few things just so everyone is aware. Look, Greg Kerfoot's been trying to sell this team for a while now. We're coming on 2 years. Somebody mentioned me that Greg Kerfoot may now be at the point where he's willing to accept not exactly a pretty penny in terms of what he would accept versus what this franchise is said to be worth by some of these public lists and of course some of these recent expansion teams that have gone in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I think that Greg Kerfoot and the ownership group knows full well the challenges, the differences between where the Whitecaps are now and what some of those public valuations are. And I would bet my bottom dollar they're willing to take less than what some of those public valuations are, because I do think they would make money on the project over the 15 plus years of MLS with some of those numbers, or at least break even. And of course, the longer this goes, the more money they lose, the more they want to get out.
I mean, I know Blake always likes to bring real estate into the mix here. And of course, I could ask whatever. I mean, I've used the analogy before on your show. I could ask whatever for my house.
Right. Exactly.
My house is worth whatever somebody with the financing is willing to pay for it.
Right. And somebody felt like the San Diego expansion franchise.
You get bears in the backyard. Added value. I don't know if that's a selling feature you want on an open house, but hey, the house isn't for sale right now.
Well, So. Well, and look, here's the thing. There are some rich people out there that thought that the San Diego franchise in Major League Soccer was worth $500 million, and that's what they paid for it. But what Greg Kerfoot and his group are willing to accept, and what MLS is willing to accept, particularly the optics in terms of what your franchise is worth, and oh, by the way, what about the financial underpinnings of this league without huge broadcast distributions like you see in the other leagues? And what happens after Lionel Messi retires and you no longer have this global icon to market? MLS is going to have a say in this too, right? Like, they are going to want to make sure that this franchise sells for an appropriate price in their eyes, which allows them to continue to talk about how much their franchises are worth and charge things like $500 million for expansion franchises in, let's face it, not exactly the biggest market of San Diego, California. The other thing I'll say, and again, like, I talked to a lot of people and sort of no one sort of could tell me anything beyond that. Oh, we knew Arthur was interested in an effort to see if there would be a group that could save. But what Cadell and the Georgia Straight reported back in May, if he's working with an international group, that could make some sense because, of course, they would not be as connected to Vancouver, and that's something that could be kept a little more hush-hush, a little quieter. So I very much allow for the possibility that Arthur's got a serious group here, but there is another competing local group. That much I can tell you. And in fact, Axel Schuster is going to join us later in the program, and he has a very big number of groups that have gotten access to the data room that's being administered by Goldman Sachs. If you're not familiar, when a sports franchise is up for sale, they usually contract one of these investment banks, and some of them are big Wall Street firms you would know of, like Goldman Sachs. Others are more private and quieter, boutique, if you will. And what they do is they set up a data room. Now, back in the day, it used to be like physical copies of all the different paperwork, basically their financial life, that people would have to travel to a certain location and look through all of the data. I suspect it's now done electronically where they send you. But basically, you have to prove that you've got some financial wherewithal. You sign a hell of a lot of non-disclosure agreements. And then the selling party via the investment bank exposes all its financials to you. And you can go about doing your due diligence and deciding whether a bid is worth your while.
And we do get into this a little bit with Axel, the idea of local versus non-local ownership. I do wonder, though, like, there's sort of this romantic notion of local ownership is best. And, we've come through an era. We just talked about Arthur Griffiths. You look at the Aquilinis, locals. Kerfoot, local. Amar Doman is a local guy. Ron Toigo's done a terrific job with the Vancouver Giants. Like, I understand the value of it, but when you look at what's happening in the global... What?
The Giants.
Well, they won a Memorial Cup. They've had their
early
successes.
days. Ron did a fantastic job with the Giants.
It's been tough.
It has been a bigger struggle.
They've
of
still
late.
produced lots of good players.
But
I just think you look at the global marketplace, Matt, and sports ownership now. It doesn't necessarily, like, outside ownership doesn't necessarily mean bad things. I mean, maybe that's where you're going to find the stability needed now to buck up and reach the purchase price. But you do want somebody that is committed. I mean, we've gone through that with the Grizzlies as well, where, we saw people flat out lie to our faces.
Yeah.
And that didn't end well, obviously.
No, and you make a good point, Jeff, with the way the world is changing, and certainly with the way sports franchise values and the way they are changing. And this circles back to, would the Griffiths, Frank and company, would they be at the wealth that could afford a Big Four professional sports franchise? The notion was local was always better because local was already rooted and invested in the community.
Sure.
That sports franchises, while someone may own the deed to them, are truly community assets. You're just holding them for the next guy. Francesco used that exact line with me years and years ago.
used to say that
David Braley used to say it all the time. It was a Burlington, Ontario businessman who just loved the Canadian Football League and saved the Lions, right? Because the Lions were really on the brink there in '96 when Braley stepped up. The other notion on why local was better is because a local owner would be more accountable. A local owner would have to, live, exist, be in daily contact, if you will, with their customers here in the local market, and thus be held to a standard of having to run the team, the operation at a certain level, because of the fact that on a day-to-day basis, they would be hearing about it from local stakeholders. Well, of course, one must have shame first, Jeff. If one has no shame, then that part of local is better need not apply. But that is the logic. But I hear what you're saying, and particularly in a world where the concentration of wealth in the upper 2%.
Yeah, we're living in the hedge fund era.
You were telling me you were playing golf with a couple of Microsoft execs last week that you met on the first tee, who sound like they live a really good life after being.
Maybe they want to buy a soccer team.
Yeah, exactly. Early Microsoft execs. So, look, we'll see where this goes. I most certainly have some questions about this Griffiths bid, but if Arthur can pull it off, then the more power to him. Now, pulling it off takes I use that phrase, but there are two different routes or pathways when I say pull it off. Number one is, can you stabilize the club in the near term? Take it off Kerfoot's hands before he sells it to someone who would relocate it, and secure at least a temporary near-term future in BC Place. As you know, some of you know, MLS has 2 seasons next year. They have a sprint season that's going to begin in the early part of 2027, and then they're going to align themselves with the global football calendar, which starts mid-August, So then the full 2027-28, because of course now MLS seasons are going to be a little more comparable to the hockey and basketball schedules overlapping the new year. So there's a lot of soccer to be played next year. And as Axel Schuster reminds everybody when we talk to him here a little bit late, look, they are holding dates at BC Place. So while they don't have a lease, they are holding dates. So getting the team through the next year, getting the team through several years, perhaps with a lease agreement on BC Place, perhaps with an offer to purchase BC Place from the province. And we asked Axel that question as well. And then the other side of the coin, and the side that's been espoused by Don Garber, now the outgoing commissioner of Major League Soccer, because we do have a replacement name for Mr. Garber after he retires. But that side of the coin has been, no, you must have a soccer-specific stadium with grass where you control all the revenues. That is an altogether bigger piece that, of course, we've been talking about for a while. And that is such a big piece that involves more than just buying a soccer team and financing a stadium. That's also basically the development of a neighborhood with commercial and residential there to underpin the finances, the expense of buying a soccer team and building that stadium. It is similar to what Mr. Zach Ross and his partners, also unnamed money people at this stage, are looking to do with that Canby site and a baseball park and bring Major League Baseball to Vancouver. So, as we said last week, I mean, these are heady times for the city, its sports franchises, its facilities, and a potential reordering of what the sports landscape will look like in Vancouver. And Jeff, you've lived here your whole life, and you've covered this town for 30 years. I mean, I can't remember a bigger period of time in terms of Vancouver where we had so many balls up in the air like we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, at times, the idea of Major League Baseball to Vancouver has surfaced, but this one now feels like it's got some momentum at the very least.
The more I dig into it, Jeff, the more good things I'm starting to hear and discover. We're going to have more on that on tomorrow's show and Thursday as well.
I mean, it is funny that this is all happening at the same time where you've got Major League Baseball, you've got the Whitecaps, you've got the Canucks. Lots of talk. I need to see a shovel in the ground at some point on one of these projects, but there's still a lot of ground that has to be covered before they get to that stage. I get that, but
let's get back to hockey here because some developments over the weekend with the World Junior Summer Showcase, which of course has two top Vancouver Canucks prospects vying for jobs with Team Canada: Caleb Malhotra, the third overall pick from the 2026 draft, and of course Braden Coots, the Canucks' first round pick in the 2025 draft. For starters, Coach had them on the same line last week. You may have seen, Jeff, with Malhotra playing center and Braden Coots playing right wing. And Blake and I talked about this last week. While it is entirely viable that Malhotra and Coots could center their own lines and even be the number 1 and 2 center for the Canadian World Junior team, usually with Canadian World Junior teams, you have an abundance of center icemen, and some of them kick over and play the wing. So I thought it was a nice touch by the coaching staff there, putting the two Vancouver Canucks prospects on the same line and giving them a little bit of a taste of playing with each other. That's exciting.
Yeah, and I think, Coots was a spare part, but he made the team last year. He's going to take on a bigger role. I'm sure he sees himself as a center. The Canucks obviously view him as a center. But, yeah, I think sometimes in that Hockey Canada program, if you can show some flexibility and versatility, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I think this was more experimental than anything at this stage in a summer showcase. Why not? Take a look.
Yeah, of course.
Kick him out to the wing and let's see what he looks like.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think you put yourself in good graces with NHL clubs when you do that, too, as a World Junior coaching staff, right? Secondly, Mark Masters reporting that Braden Coots and Cole Reschny, this is a Calgary Flames first-round pick, former Victoria Royal, have emerged as the leading contenders to serve as the team captain for Canada at the World Juniors. You spent some time with Coots last year at training camp. Of course, he made the Vancouver Canucks, played a few games before it all got too much. And this was something that was talked about him going into his draft, Jeff. There's a pretty conscientious leader there as well, huh?
Yeah. Saw him again at the development camp out in Abbotsford a month ago as well. Look, I think it all lines up here. And it really does sort of feel like a two-horse race to be the captain. And I think Coots might have the inside track, Matt. They're both returning players. Generally, you're going to put the C on a returning guy, so they check that box. Braden Coots wore the C for Canada at the under-18s not that long ago, so he has already had the C stitched to his Hockey Canada jersey. The other part is he's a Sherwood Park guy. The tournament is in nearby Edmonton. So, check. Like, there's a lot of reasons to think that he absolutely could be the captain.
And he's sounding like a captain because Canada lost to the USA 7-2. Now, it's an exhibition game. We're not going to get too out of sorts. Brooks Rogowski looked good again, incidentally. The Canucks' second-round pick from this year is playing second-line center for the American World Junior team. But Coots was asked about the loss and said, quote, "It's pretty embarrassing, honestly. Never want to do that. Doesn't matter if it's August or Boxing Day, but we'll learn from it. It's tough. Obviously, it's not what we wanted, but it gives us some motivation." Yeah, suck on a 7-2 loss to the Americans over the course of the summer. More Canucks prospect news. Adam Novotny, their second first-round pick this past year. Of course, they were delighted to get him 24th overall. He is going to represent Czechia at the Five Nations tournament later this month in Finland. And if you're on a visual platform, you can see that there's only so many Czechia drafted forwards that are going to be a part of this team. So people quite believe that Adam Novotny is going to play a top six, even a first-line role for the Czech World Junior team going forward. So, Jeff, the World Juniors are going to get more and more fun for us as we get deeper into this rebuild because the Canucks should be absolutely supplying some of these countries with a good bit of their talent, given the number of draft picks we anticipate.
And the World Juniors is always better when there is Canuck content there, and especially frontline guys, and it's been a little while. So, we'll see where it goes. Novotny, another guy that, and again, I was only out there for the 1 day of development camp, but he looked good. He looked, he's big. He's got pro size already.
Yep. Pro shot.
Can shoot the puck.
And pretty responsible two-way player as well by some of the accounts. I think they were You heard every year. Oh, we couldn't believe he was there.
I think that on that video.
Yeah, no, I think it does apply to Novotny, though. This was a kid who sort of had mid-first round buzz most of the year and fell into their laps in the 20s. It's official out in Abbotsford. They have hired Mark O'Leary as a new assistant coach on the staff there of new head coach Ryan Papianu, who joins existing assistant coach Harry Mahesh. O'Leary is the guy who had all that success with the Moose Jaw Warriors in the WHL. And they also hired a new video coach by the name of Lucas Bourdon. It stopped me in my tracks when I first saw it, Jeff, because of course, if you're of a certain age, you remember Luc Bourdon, the fallen Vancouver Canuck, passed away in a motorcycle accident in New Brunswick shortly after Mike Gillis accepted the job. As you remember, that was one of the first files that Gillis dealt with as a new GM of the Vancouver Canucks. The sudden and shocking passing of Luc Bourdon was a top 10 draft pick, figured to be a big part of the Canucks blue line. No relation, this Bourdon to that Bourdon, but that's the first thing that crossed
for sure. No, I didn't
my mind. I was like, oh, goodness, is the Bourdon family back in Canucks colors? And Evan Gauld has a new gig. He who would have been Vancouver Canucks GM, who some say were hammering out final details to be new GM of the Vancouver Canucks. Ex of the Boston Bruins, he has landed a gig with the New York Islanders. So I suspect he's going to be a GM someday. Probably not with the Islanders, though, since Matthew Darche is still
fairly new on the job there. And it looks like a lateral move, but at the same time, they've put him in charge of giving him the GM's title of the farm team, the Hamilton
Which he had
Hammers.
done before for,
Yeah,
for Providence. with the
Anyhow,
Bruins.
it's been a bit of a, because didn't Langenbrunner left Boston as well
That's
this
right.
summer, so
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
cleared a
some-
few spots in the Bruins front office, and not surprised to see that Evan Gauld, he's highly regarded in hockey circles, and I'm with you. At some point, I think he'll get the opportunity to run his own team, but it may not be there on the island.
Let's get to today's menu, and we teased this last week, and it's real now. How about holding your fantasy football draft at Greta? That's right. Skip the basement, skip the cleanup, skip fighting over who's hosting. Bring your league to Greta YVR for an unforgettable fantasy football draft party. Reserve draft space, high-speed Wi-Fi, great food, cold beer, arcade gaming, plenty of screens. You'll have everything you need to kick off the season in style, whether you're chasing a championship or just looking for an excuse to get the league back together. Greta, the place to make draft day an event. There are 3 different packages that Greta is offering to fantasy football commissioners, depending on, well, how much food and bev you want, how much arcade time your league wants, and more perks come football season when it comes to those Thursday and Sunday evening games for those who participate in drafting at Greta. For more information, you're going to want to email k.kim, K-I-M, at gretabar.com. That's k.kim at gretabar.com. Have yourself a memorable draft day.
I love
with
that when you
fantasy
mentioned that last
football.
week, and I was just listening in, and I thought, that's
Fantastic
perfect.
idea.
Like, absolutely. Talk about a place that is ready made and built for that job.
Yep.
Get on
in
it.
my early days of fantasy baseball, not football, we used to, we had one guy who was the CFO, and he used to get the conference room at the office, and we'd bring beer and stuff, but it wasn't the same. I mean, get on out. Have yourself a blast while you're drafting your fantasy football team. So Axel Schuster, Caps CEO, is going to join us here. Patrick Johnston after that. Patrick.
We found him. He's back from the mountains.
And Patrick responds to Ryan Johnson basically shot down his report that budgets cuts, slashing salaries is not a pursuit. Patrick responds to that, as well as talking about the Britannia situation. Talks about Zeev Buium. Is it a money issue that's holding up an extension there? And Patrick also was writing on BC Place in the Caps, who wants to run it. So everything with Patrick on those files. With Axel, we certainly talk about the game on Saturday, the 1-1 draw with LAFC. Talk about some of the personnel involved too. Berhalter and his replacement, Thomas Muller, how great he's looked. Ryan Gauld on the return trail. Poor Ranko Veselinović. It sounds like another serious knee injury for Ranko. But we also get in and ask him, do you want to buy BC Place or just run it? What can you tell us about the Arthur Griffiths bid? What's the timeline coming up? And Axel hits us with a very, very big number in terms of the groups who have kicked the tires and had access to that data room. Later in the program, we'll talk BC Lions. Fantastic victory in Winnipeg. A star is born at quarterback and tailback for the Leos. Baseball trade deadline. The M's and the Blue Jays were both quite active. We got a winner out at the Langley Event Center with the Vancouver Bandits in the CEBL. Congratulations to them. Had the Odlum Brown for the first time in 5 years, Jeff. That was great fun over the weekend. C's, of course, 2 more homestands to see the Vancouver Canadians at historic Nat Bailey Stadium take advantage. Plenty going on this Tuesday edition of S&P. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. Mr. Paterson, lead us off. You got a winner?
Well, we'll see. Rich get richer. You ready to see Tarek Skubal in a Dodgers uniform?
Oh, goodness.
Makes his debut at Wrigley against the Cubs later on this evening. Tarek Skubal to keep the Cubs under 5 hits, so 4.5. You can get him at plus 105. So I'm going to take that as my line of the day.
The Ottawa Red Blacks are 0-7. And Regina, Saskatchewan is no place to go for a winless football team, let alone a Riders club coming off a huge road win over Edmonton. Clapped back and got the Elks, who won the first leg of that home and home.
Great crowd there too. That was good to see.
It was good to see. It was very good to see Edmonton bouncing back as a CFL market after some lean times. Look, I suspect the Riders could take the Red Blacks lightly, but give me them minus 7.5 points. I suspect it's going to be higher than that come kickoff because people have a lot of time between now and Friday to assess these two teams. See what Ottawa isn't and what Saskatchewan is. The worst thing about hockey season is that at some point every year it ends. A lot of time between now and the first puck drop, although less than 2 months now, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like an eternity for those who are accustomed to watching nightly games. Good news, Bet365 still has plenty of games, just none that require lacing up your skates. At Bet365 Casino, you can choose between hundreds of slots, live tables, your favorite games, or maybe your second favorite games. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Axel Schuster coming up next. Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. This next guest brought to you appropriately by Vancouver Whitecaps FC. Caps are in phase one of Leagues Cup. It starts tonight at BC Place. Leagues Cup, a 4-week competition with teams from MLS and Liga MX in Mexico. Not only do teams play for the Leagues Cup trophy, but third place in the final will determine the 3 clubs that qualify for the 2027 CONCACAF Champions Cup. And the Caps are certainly familiar with that tournament. Caps have 3 matches in total, 2 at BC Place in the Phase 1 competition. They host Atlanta FC. That's the Mexican Atlanta FC tonight. And then FC Juarez on Friday at BC Place, 7:30 p.m. kickoffs. For tickets, check out whitecapsfc.com/Leagues Cup. And we're pleased to be joined by the president, by the CEO and the sporting director of Vancouver Whitecaps FC. It's our old friend, Mr. Axel Schuster. Welcome home. Good to see you and your team back here in Vancouver, Axel.
Yeah, good to see you. And it's really good to be back.
And it should be 40,000 people Saturday at BC Place. Before we get into the match, just a word or two about the scene and the support you got.
Yeah, it was amazing. I honestly, we were talking numbers and we had sold more than 30,000 before at the break. And so everyone in the office was pushing and we're looking, do we get it over the 40,000? What is a significant and huge number for us. So, and then to really see it coming together on match day and to hear, and we have a chat on the attendance and to get really the numbers, we are close, and we just crossed the number, was an amazing feeling.
Yeah. And a 1-1 draw that we'll get to in a second. But Axel, you've been messaging for the last year and a half just how much this team means in the community. And we saw another example on it of it on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always wanted to be a community club. From my first day on here, I said that. I come from a background where clubs are very, very deeply rooted into the communities. I think this club was always already before, but it was a little bit of work to reactivate it after COVID and to get that feeling that this club means a lot to the people, but also means more than just a team on the pitch, and to feel that. And I think the nicer, or as nice stories are if we are somewhere out in the communities and feel this love and the support, other than on match days, and to see how excited people are if they can connect with us on every platform this club has.
and you gave them a moment. No surprise, it was Thomas Muller from the spot coming through for you. You needed that goal, though, because you had fallen behind. But, boy, based on the run of play and really over 90 minutes, you guys were the better team without a doubt. How did you look at the overall performance on Saturday?
Yeah, look, I was super happy with our performance, where I think every team had a little bit of a difficult time to get back to speed after the long break. And it is unnormal to have such a long break in the middle of the season. Every one of us still has in mind as like we won the last game in San Diego and got to the top of the Western Conference, and then you have such a long break. So it was really good to see that our team is back to speed, that we looked like ourselves, we looked like the team before, that really is the number one in the Western Conference. And yes, we did one mistake. Mistakes are part of the game, and LAFC scored off that mistake. But other than that, we were in complete control of the game. We didn't allow anything else, and it was about staying in our game, being patient, waiting for the right moment. We had a lot of good moments. We couldn't convert them to a goal, and then we got the PK, and then it's about Thomas Muller executing those perfectly, and he has done that in every situation so far. So I don't want to jinx something, but so far, Thomas Muller from the PK spot is a 100% goal.
You're not going to replace Seb Berhalter and all that he did for this team and the way that he had developed here, but it does provide opportunities, and I thought guys like Oliver Larraz and Jivan Badwal both stepped up. What about the opportunity for those two guys here moving forward?
Yeah, I try always to explain everyone, don't be worried because we lost one player, especially if it is a situation that we saw coming and we were preparing for. Because that's our story. I mean, our story since a long time, and we had several of these moments. I mean, Pedro Vito left the club last year in the middle of the season, and people thought like he is irreplaceable. And in the second half of the season, we made it all the way to the MLS Cup final. Ali Ahmed left the club after last season, and I mean, we all love Ali and we all cheered for him at the World Cup, but we found a way to replace him and to continue to do what we do. So that's the same with Seb. We definitely will not replace Seb with a Seb because that's not possible. I mean, that's not how we do things, but we will replace Seb with several players who will give us more options and more depth and will help us to continue to play on that level that we are playing right now.
You talked about bringing in a starter, Axel, last week, presumably for Seb. How close are you on bringing in this starter?
Yeah, he said, first of all, because I saw that some people quoted me wrongly. I have never said we bring in a star or something like that. I said our intention is to also bring in a player who is ready also from where he is at training or playing and who is ready to start in this league right away with no transition time or settling in. So we're still working on that, and we all would love to get this deal closed earlier than later. But on the other side, I also have to say what I said a lot of people on Saturday when they asked me about this. I said, look, if everyone would have put together a starting 11 before the break, Seb would have been in this. If everyone puts together a starting 11 now after the break, Ryan Gauld is in this. So on the starting 11, that probably everyone puts together the names that we have flipped is Ryan Gauld for Sebastian Berhalter. And as you said, some other guys in the midfield have stepped up and have played a really good game. And so we're not worried about the group we have, but our intention is still to improve our roster every window.
Give us a temperature check on Ryan Gauld. You've got a chance to see him now on the pitch, and more importantly, you've got a chance to see him and how he recovers after putting in these minutes. How's Gauldy doing, Axel?
You know, he's doing great. I mean, this is hopefully his year and becomes his year now. We all know he became father, and so he's back from an injury, and it took forever. And I think we made the right decision at the beginning of the year when he was back on the pitch but still felt pain to make the decision to take another break and to really go for the surgery and make sure that he comes back from that with zero pain and zero restrictions. And so far, the best that I can say is that he feels good after every game. So it's not only about feeling good into going into a game and playing well. He feels also good after the game, the day after, 2 days after, and so he's ready to play the next game. We will still manage our roster during the Leagues Cup time now, and we will see all players, but not every player will play. Tuesday is today, I think, Friday. So we will manage that a little bit. But at the end, I said it before the game on Saturday, and I will say it now again. For the next MLS game, we will be even more sharper and have more available players than for the last MLS game. And I think that's a good starting point if you're number one in the Western Conference as of now.
Yeah, I mean, when you play these competitions within your league schedule, you find yourself busy, obviously. And I think it's basically 2 games per week here for the balance of this month. So you mentioned it there, but I mean, it's a challenge for Jesper, obviously, to manage his lineup, but it's also a great opportunity to get everybody involved and give guys chances to sort of make their mark as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to play 30 plus games in the rest of this year. So that's a lot of games in a very short time. So that's also a reason why we want to bring in a couple of players. We brought already one guy in, so we want to bring in a couple more players to give more depth and alternatives for these many games. And we also don't want to say that any competition is not important for us. So the Leagues Cup is important for us, and the Canadian Championship is anyway important for us. But the most important competition is, of course, MLS and MLS Cup, because that's the number one competition we are playing in every year. So we will have to manage the other competitions. What we have seen last year when we had to rotate a lot in the first half of the season, we were able to get to every final. So it doesn't mean any other competition is not as important, or we will not play our best lineup. We will play the best lineup with the freshest legs possible, and for that we need a few more fresh legs now.
Axel, we're about 1 year into the Thomas Muller experiment here in Vancouver. Based on what your thoughts, ideas, and expectations were then, and how it's turned out to date, temperature check on Mr. Muller and what he's brought over his year in Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't think I need to explain people a lot about this. I can say, what was my expectation? Was it exceeded? Yes, definitely it was exceeded. I want to say one thing. I'm also very happy for him that this played out this way, because we all know, and we spoke about that a lot, he selected us, he picked us. It wasn't us convincing him with, I mean, we had a lot of good things to tell him, but at the end, he could make his decision. And a player like Thomas Muller is in interest, or for interest for a lot of clubs. So when he made the decision to come to Vancouver, he also took a risk, because he could have finished his career, he could have gone somewhere else, and people would have said, oh, why has he done that? So to have that success, to go all the way to the MLS Cup final, winning the Canadian Championship, now again playing in all competitions successfully and competing again, it's also a great story for him, and he plays a huge part of this. As I always say, he is holding everyone accountable. You can see it during the games, the way he's speaking with his teammates. Even after the game, we had like, I think, 5 or 6 extra minutes at the end of the game, but there was another delay, and he sprinted right away to the referee because we were in possession, and he wanted that the referee continues to play, because he wants always to win, and he wants to, I would say, push everyone for going for winning, and that's absolutely changed also a little bit the mentality, or at least changed a little bit the intensity that we sometimes have in training and in the games.
What can you tell us about Ranko Veselinović? Of course, missed a full year with that knee injury, and then alas got hurt again after coming back. What's Ranko's status going forward here, Axel?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, and we're all sad for him, because if you come back from such an injury, and he's vice captain, I think now in the top 3 of played games for the Vancouver Whitecaps in MLS ever. and everyone was hoping and I would say wishing the very best for him to come back and come back strong. And then you see how he makes it into training and into the first games, and he plays the first game, and then you have the break, and after the break he's ready to start. And then to have such a setback, he got re-injured. Luckily not as bad as the first time, but still bad enough to have him pausing again for a significant number of weeks. And I think we will have an update after we spoke with all experts about what we predict. Is he coming back in the season? Does that make sense? Also, it's the one thing is the pause for the regeneration of the injury itself, but then you also need to train again to get back to full ability to play as a center back, and center backs very barely get subbed, so you have to be ready to start. So we will have that analyzer soon, and we will update everyone, but we will miss him for a longer time. So we have to work with the roster we have, and we have to do this again without him. And we have done that well, and still we are all set that he is not here.
So chance to come back this season, but it's also possible that it may not be till 2027. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. On the business side, Axel, and plenty going on there as well over the last couple of weeks. Look, we know the club is interested in operating BC Place. Axel, or Vancouver Whitecaps FC interested in buying BC Place?
I mean, you have to ask other people about that, because first I heard that it might be an option. Then I think I read again it might not be an option. So I had not that discussion. I would say what is probably the most accurate standpoint or comment from our side on all of this. We are interested in every solution that improves our revenue side as a club, because that's where we suffer. That's where we are back at the back end of this league. And we need to improve that to continue to be competitive in this league. And so we always have said we are not focusing on one solution. We are focusing on any possible solution, and we have these conversations. But also, unfortunately, at this point, we have not a breakthrough year.
I read last week that you said there were still a few things that you guys were working on by way of BC Place and revenue stream. Can you specify what are these three things? What else does the club need in terms of a BC Place lease arrangement for 2027? Because there's none in place right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not negotiating in the public, and I think the thing I always say is we have good conversations with all parties, but we have made very clear what our situation is also compared to other clubs. We try always to be, I would say, reasonable and analyze just us compared to other stadium situations that are close or similar to ours, and to show what is possible at other cities. So we think it should be possible here as well. But so far we couldn't get to a point where we say, okay, we can paper something. The conversations are going on, and it is not an easy consolation. And I don't want to say that we thought this is a home run and will be solved easily, because there are a lot of parties involved. It's a British Columbian government, it's PAFCO, it's other tenants in the building. So the conversations are ongoing. I mean, we have still another half of a season that we are playing. And we also have an agreement with BC Place that they hold our dates for next year. So no one has to be worried at this point.
Does it change the top of MLS, change anything? We saw over the weekend that there will be a new commissioner. We've known for a little while that Don Garber was stepping away. Do you truly believe that MLS wants Vancouver to work?
MLS wants all their 30 clubs to work, and I can say from MLS perspective, and I don't have a different one, is it is definitely not the right situation if you have one of the best performing teams on the pitch, plus one of the biggest attendance in the league, and that club sits at the back end, way back end of all revenue in the league. So this is what we said a while ago and what I say again. I mean, everyone should, and I'm not saying that they are not, but everyone, it's an easy logic or an easy argument to understand. You can't have an exciting team, top performing, top attendance, 40,000, and be at the very back end of all revenues. I mean, that was what we said from the beginning. We felt always this, I would say, this pressure to prove that we first do better before we come with that argument. We in our predictions already saw that something was wrong, but you could always say, yeah, but you're also not attractive, you're not performing well, people are not really buying into your product. Now we have proven all of that, and we are still sitting at the back end. So we need to find a formula that is better than this, because I think no sports organization in no competition would ever accept such a situation, because it's not sustainable for the long term.
Axel, there was a report on the weekend from Sportsnet's Dan Murphy that the former owner of the Canucks and Grizzlies, Arthur Griffiths, is heading a group that has put in a formal offer to purchase the Whitecaps. Do you know Arthur? Have you talked to Arthur? And what's the status of this offer, this bid to buy the team?
Oh, yes, I know Arthur, because I always get invited by the Canucks alumni event. And for whatever reason, we are always sitting at the same table. So I know and run into him definitely once in a year at that event. And I have to say, we have always lovely conversations there. I have said, and I repeat this here, there's no updates about this situation. And we have not confirmed, and we will not confirm in future, who has reached out and which conversations we have entered into. There's a formal process also with our partner Goldman Sachs that has to vet and has to analyze whatever offer is on the table, and has also to put that into the mechanisms or into the structure that the league requires. So as soon as there is an update, you will not be the first one hearing about it, but you will definitely be in somewhere in the top of 10 of those lists, and I will share with you, but there's no update yet.
Is the offer being vetted then by Goldman Sachs? Do they have something for Mr. Griffiths?
I wouldn't frame it this way, but I'll say, look, there have been, as I said, 90 plus groups who have got access to our data room. And I will not go through the list, but I also will not say who is not on this list.
Mm-hmm. Is local ownership preferred, though, if possible?
Look, I mean, honestly, this ownership group is owning this club for a long time. And I would say 2 years in this process, we couldn't find somebody who wanted to just take it from here and say, oh, this is a great thing, I want to have it. So first of all, I always want to say thank you to this ownership group, because they own it and they do this, even with the formula that we were speaking about just before, that is not really fitting and not really a fair formula as of now. So saying that, the intention of our ownership group was from the beginning to find somebody who has, does he have to be local? Yes, no, who at least has a commitment and has an interest to continue what they have done here in Vancouver. So we never shorten our list to it has to be a local owner, or if it is a local owner, that's better than a non-local owner. There could be somebody who is not local and he is completely in love with this market and he says, this is the market where I want to have a team. It should be ideally somebody who has that commitment and has that love for what was and is built by this ownership group.
Lastly, Axel, can you give your supporters, your fans, a sense of the timeline here? Like, at what point does the penny need to drop here? At what point does the rubber need to hit the road with regards to the ownership piece and who's going to own this club going forward?
Yeah, I said it last week, and I'm happy to repeat it here because maybe not everyone was able to hear me. I said, look, there is no deadline or hard end, but of course, being so long in this process, if nothing significant changes in a reasonable time, short term, I'm careful with these words because I sometimes don't know how people interpret that. But I mean, if nothing changes now some point soon, because we again perform well. We had 40,000, and if we can't get to a solution, where should the belief come from that waiting way longer will completely change something? Right. So that's, everyone has to understand. On the other side, because before somebody misinterprets that, we're selling tickets for the sprint season, so we're going to the market. So I want to put that all together in context. But of course, now is the time. The World Cup was just here. Excitement is great. This is a soccer city. This club has 40,000 at the game. We have to fix the other side now.
All fair. Axel, great seeing you again. Great hearing from you. I appreciate this. Best of luck in Leagues Cup, which gets going tonight and Friday at BC Place, and we'll catch up down the road. Sir, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We're now joined by columnist for the Province Sun, Postmedia, Mr. Patrick Johnston, who does all of this reporting. Jeff, all of these stink bombs he drops around the city and then disappears into camping where nobody can reach him.
It's a good strategy.
For the better part of a week. Hi, welcome back. I hope it was fun.
Yes, it was lovely. Lovely. Love Birkenhead Lake. It's very nice. And yes, nobody can reach you. It's wonderful.
I texted him on the weekend. I'm like, are you back this week? And you know, when it takes like 48 hours for him to get back to you, that there was no cell service at the campsite.
At least that's the story.
That is exactly. Very good, Jeff. Okay, this Britannia practice facility, and we're asking our poll question today. Do you think the Canucks will get their Britannia practice facility built? We did the story earlier. You've already got some community pushback there because they do not specify a second sheet of ice.
Nope.
Something we all talked about when Britannia was first leaked as a potential site by Irf Gafar back in the spring. Small footprint there. Okay, the facilities itself are going to be built up, but nothing specific with regards to a second ice sheet, which means the Canucks would be taking up a lot of the existing time on the Britannia ice sheet. City's in this. It's an MOU, but you tell me, what do you think the chances are that this thing gets built?
Well, the MOU is Ken Sims' favorite thing, isn't it? It's a little bit of sports washing, shall we say? That's been my instinct, because, you know, you go back to December and think about the announcement that they signed a deal. I mean, the Whitecaps were very, and I know you're talking about Axel on later, but, you know, I mean, even then he was like, well, yeah, we can try to, what we have is a year to try to make something happen. And I was like, okay. So he's like, so there's nope. Because, you know, at that point, when it was coming up, you know, you start hearing all kinds of little rumors. Oh, this is what's happening, and they're signing this and all these. And then they're like, and they were actually, when I finally talked to Axel about it in December, he was taking it back. And so that's what I'm thinking about with this, is that, like, listen, certainly we know the ownership has a concept I've heard, and they're very excited. And obviously, Irf's been on top of all this. But, you know, for many reasons, Britannia has been stalled as a project beyond whatever the Canucks are trying to do, right? Like, there's a lot of issues in how you manage that, and we've talked about this in the past. You know, doing anything there is not going to be easy. And if you're not doing a rink, which is what everybody wants, I mean, kudos to Van Miner and the Vancouver Angels and Vancouver Thunderbirds, the three main minor hockey associations in the city itself, for standing up and saying, like, we need help. Like, they aren't going to do, someone has to do it. And as far as they're concerned, the Canucks are in a well-heeled position to make a huge difference. And, you know, as many have pointed out, there are many teams in the United States. Tom Gillardy in Dallas. You know, there's so many examples of teams in the U.S. who have realized they need to build their own sort of hockey community. And so they built ice rinks. Obviously, it's different here. But nonetheless, as I pointed out, it's been 50 plus years since we've had basically an addition of ice to the city itself. And that's even by counting creatively with UBC and Hillcrest and all these things. So, like, it's not a good situation. It's an easy win. You know, when the first thing got announced, you know, talking to people in the community, Like, you talk to people who actually work at Britannia, who are working at this, ground level, street level, if you will, with people who are, at the school or connected to the school or connected to the community. And they've heard very little about whatever it is that this high level conversation between the Canucks and the city of Bean, whatever led to this MOU, right? Like the people on the ground who understand the projects and the challenges of the community, what need to get done, they're in the dark. And I don't think that's a very good thing. And again, the minor hockey associations who, I think are doing their best to get that message across to the Canucks, and I credit to them if they can make something happen, because as they pointed out, there are a lot of possibilities over the PNE. Let's get serious. Like, let's be real. And it's such an easy win. And this is, for all the talks I've heard about them wandering around the city, wandering around the Lower Mainland, trying to find a local government to work with them. It's all come back to sort of a reluctance to really want to invest and take the easy win. Build some ice and you'll be paraded, up and down whatever street you're building on, right? Like it's such an easy PR win here. It continues to confuse me why it's been clear for so long for the Canucks to actually step forward and be, the community leaders they claim they want to be.
I just have trouble figuring out, like, there's going to be a cost regardless. Like, we get that part of it. So
yeah.
Where are the smart people? Where are the creative thinkers in this city? You guys have traveled the NHL like I have as well. Like, the Detroit Red Wings practice facility is completely underground in the new attached to the new Little Caesars, but the practice facility is underground. The Washington Capitals practice facility is 2 sheets of ice on the top floor of a parkade attached to a shopping mall.
Right.
Like, there are solutions beyond just taking 15 parking spots at Britannia and building a tower and somehow calling that a practice facility. It feels to me like it's time for some smart and creative thinkers to figure something out here.
Well, and as I've said before, like, people suggested to ownership years ago, 15 years ago probably, that what they really should do is they should buy the Plaza of Nations, which, it was with one group that was not Conquer Pacific forever. They never got anything done. There was a deal there to do something, to be part of the development that, it was planned for, which never happened. Maybe, as far as I know, Francesco blew the deal up, but maybe he was onto something with that one. But in the end, what the advice was, buy the land, build a rink there, do a development there. And when they say build a rink, they mean a new arena, and you can build a practice, make it whatever. And then you can blow up the current one and redevelop that entire property, because one day that rink will be old. And well, by the way, now the rink is old, right? Like, what I was told that basically was the response from Luigi was, well, that's not how we do business. That's just not what they do. It was an incredibly creative solution, and it was just, nope, that's not what we do. We go A to B. And here we are. It's an A to B proposal. What do we need? Well, we need some offices, and we need some training space, and we need a change room, and there's ice already there. Patrick Alvin hinted at this, it was 18 months ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
There was an update when he said, we might just have to add on to something that already exists. And I remember thinking at that time, I'm like, I don't know, like, that's okay, but that's not what anybody needs. And also, quite rightly, like, there is a risk of taking ice away from minor hockey teams.
That's
right?
what
like,
I was just going to say,
it's
Patrick.
Just crazy.
You talk
Just
about being an
crazy.
easy PR win. It's also a big PR loss if you've got disappointed young kids, hockey players, because they're losing access to one of the few rinks they have in central Vancouver because the Canucks are using it up as often as they would be.
That would be comically entitled thinking, right? Like it's cartoon villain stuff to not even think about what would happen by your actions. That, okay, yes, midweek, yeah, sure, there's nobody using the ice on a Thursday morning, and that's when you would need it. But there are lots of times when Jeff and I find ourselves out at UBC on a Saturday. I'm not usually there on a Sunday, but they're there on a Sunday, and that's ice time that is in theory being taken away from somebody else. The Thunderbirds already live, the Vancouver Thunderbirds, who are the West Side Association, already live this reality, which is that there is ice that sometimes they lose access to. And it's not just the Canucks, it's, the visiting teams. Visiting teams are often out there, right? It's a block of ice that is not getting used by kids, which is why in the big picture, And it is why the 3 minor hockey associations are banging the drum. In general, they need more ice. Van Miner is going to have to start turning kids away because they don't have enough ice, and they're still using the same capacity they had since I was a kid, and I think even since Jeff and you were kids, Matt. I know you didn't grow up here, Matt, but Jeff played on all these rinks the same as me.
But to your point there, Patrick, and I think this is important, that people think, oh, practice facility, the Canucks would only use it from 9 till noon. Well, first of all, the Canucks never practice before 11 a.m. And the day after a game, it's generally 11:30. So they've got ice till, 11:30 till 1. But, your practice facility, in perfect world, couple of sheets, you might have injured guys that are out there skating or guys that are working one-on-one with skills coaches. But then, as you say, there is an understanding in the National Hockey League that when the Canucks hit the road, they will use Vegas's practice facility or Boston's practice facility. But the expectation is that the Canucks can secure ice for those teams as well. Well, that's after the Canucks practice. Now you are looking at, we've been there where we've been there till 4 o'clock on a weekday where a visiting team has, set up shop to practice. So it isn't as simple as, it's 9 to noon and they're not going to interrupt other parts of the program. It can be the better part of a full business day if 2 teams are getting their NHL practices in.
Yeah. And the other thing about it is that it's the year-round aspect too, right? A lot of these rinks, the ice comes out. And I am not commending every sport having become a year-round thing, but they are year-round things. And there will be people that want to do stuff in the summer. And that's yet another easy win for the Vancouver Canucks. If this was a Canucks branded building and it's available all the year and everybody can skate there. And, look, you could, heck, you could build stands. Jeff, I think about that Vegas setup or the Seattle setup, but Vegas especially, there's stands there, both sides. Heck, you shouldn't be selling tickets to let people in to watch practice, but, these guys would. And you know what? There's an idea for them. It's a simple one. There are so many possibilities of things that they could be done here if they would just put the capital up to build an extra rink somewhere.
So let me play devil's advocate. Is it a big enough footprint you could put a second sheet adjacent to, or would you have to build it up in that building
I
they have renderings up?
Well, no, having stared a long time at the Google Maps images of that, I believe, that there is essentially, if you look at that parking lot, because the parking lot, the space they're talking about that Jeff referred to is literally right next to the building, right? It's the Zamboni exit, basically.
It's like a sub-parking. It's a sub-parking.
And they're going to build parking underneath, right? So on the other side of the entrance to the lot, which is off the alley, which comes down off Venables, there's a long part. You could build a rink there, absolutely. And then you presumably would also build a bunch of underground parking and all kinds of stuff. But there's a way to do it. Now, the one understanding I have, and this is from, I've spoken to, I think at one point, Levi Higgs, who's the president of Van Miner, who lives in the community and was involved with the Britannia board at one point because they were trying to get things started with the overall redevelopment project that's been on the books for ages but has stalled. There is a BC Hydro power culvert that runs underneath there that would be somewhat challenging for sort of construction, but at the end of the day, his belief is that you could put a sheet of ice there for sure. But to be clear, their real idea is to go over to the PNE, look at that huge parking lot that sits on the north side of the Coliseum. And there's space there, and we're not even talking about the race course, right? The race course is assuming we've got to do something with that. But that parking lot, there is a way to basically build a 3-plex. They have essentially a sketched out 3-plex plan. That's what they're talking about, and they're like, this is the real play. That forget adding a little rinky-dink little building. Let's talk about the big picture.
Yep.
Let's add this, and this would change everything for minor hockey in the city.
I just go back to the idea, though, that there's 50 years without a city-built facility,
it's crazy.
And you think of the population base downtown, Yaletown, Olympic Village now, all so underserved in terms of amenities. That's why, again, Falls Creek or Plaza of Nations, it makes too much sense, and yet, for whatever reasons, it still sits there, and whether it's the actual Plaza of Nations or some of that Concord land, it feels like the solution is just waiting. I know that there's a check that has to be written, but And that's the price of doing business.
And that was why, I talked to the guys quite a bit that had that development, the original plan for the Plaza Nations. They've now sold it off, but I talked to them quite a bit. And, they looked around and they talked to the city, and the city said, let's build an ice sheet. That's why the plans for that complex was to have a community center and ice sheet in it. And that's why the Canucks made sense, because they were across the street and the Canucks were going to run it. It was basically going to get built and the Canucks were going to run it. And then anyway, whatever happened, it's not there. It's beside the point. But like, there is a concept from the city that is a spot. But that's.
Yeah. I know sometimes commissioners are loath to get themselves involved with provincial issues, but God, I sure hope Gary's picked up the phone at some point and said, Luigi, Francesco, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah.
And no, we're not going forward with a plan that would take ice time away from minor hockey players in your city. It's got to be bigger league than that. Gentlemen, we shall see. Okay. We did this story last week as well. You had the report about the Canucks slashing payroll.
Yeah.
8 million already and 12, and preferably 12
there's a dream
more.
of 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan Johnston speaking last week. I can assure you we've had no mandate about money or to shed salaries. The support is there, and they brought me in with a vision for what's right in the short term and long term. He has clapped back at you in your own paper, no less. What's going on here?
Well, I mean, he's going to give you the answer that he asked you, which is that these guys are wrong, right?
So you stand by it, Patrick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, it's well sourced, right? And like it's it's one of these ones where you report it and you start hearing from people that more stuff is happening. So like, no, I mean, part of the sale was, or part of the sort of pitch to ownership was, listen, we know that you're cost conscious right now. A rebuild, in terms of player cost and all kinds of other things, we can find ways to make this work. And the project has been constantly about grinding down on expenses, right? Like the people that leave are experienced, and in general, they've been bringing in people who are less experienced and cost less money. Like there's been a through line here. So fine, Ryan is going to say what he wants. And I respect and appreciate Ryan for what he does, but I stand by what I said, like that there's been an overall, I mean, this goes back to the hiring of the coach, right? Like multiple people told me that it was a stunning thing in the story. And I think I said, there was a source that told me the story going around junior hockey is like, this is not a place to go work. As much as there are only so many jobs in the NHL, like, there are people going, and credit to them. Those guys are going to work hard. Like they're getting in the door, right? And I full power to them, and I think they're, I hope the best for them. But the big picture remains that this is an organization that's cost conscious, and that's
that hunger may very well help the organization with the guys that they did get. And you say it goes back to the coach. It goes back to Ryan Johnston. I mean, we did the item earlier. Evan Gauld is off to the New York Islanders, right? After finishing as a near runner-up.
Do you think that? Then hand in hand with that, they've had this opportunity here since July 1st to extend Zeev Buium and Liam Ogren, and we're seeing basically all the contracts signed this summer, big cash outlays up front, signing bonuses and those types of things. Now, the hockey club could say, hey, we want to wait and see, and, do these guys take a step before we commit? But do you think what you just mentioned plays into some of the inactivity around extending some of the young players?
It's possible. I tend to lean more towards what we know of Ryan Johnston, which is that he's been a smart and patient guy, and he showed that mostly. That my sort of outsider take on that is that this is a guy that isn't in a rush to do anything and doesn't have to, right? Like there's no rush to extend Zeev Buium, right? There's no rush to extend Liam Ogren. Like Buium, I think you need to see more from both those guys. And I suppose on their side, their incentive is to come in and have a big year, right? And get their money, right? Like the Canucks incentive is aside on the lower contract. Their incentive is come in, Buium to come in and show his game's taking a huge pace and he's going to put up 50 points. And, Liam Ogren shows that he can score 20 goals. And, like that changes their stories so much. To me, nobody has any particular need other than the Canucks I suppose, to protect themselves in the long run. But, in the end, the players, they'll want to see the players go perform because that's better for everybody, right? It's better for marketing. It's better for the whole sort of narrative and better for where they're trying to get to. So, no, I don't really have any sense in beyond the fact that there's, I think, learning from the past. Like Ryan Johnston, let's not forget, Ryan Johnston has seen a series of general managers here, a series of people running the show, and has learned, hopefully, from all of them of what to do and what not to do. And certainly, he would have seen Jim Benning jump all over a few extensions that made no sense. And, he would have seen Patrick Alvey make the same mistake, right? Like, are we, like Nils Höglander, great guy, but really should have been traded after that season, right? Was Dakota Joshua ever really? I would have a huge amount of time for Dakota Joshua, but was that the right move? I would suggest hesitation versus jumping ahead of the thing when it comes to contracts like that anyway. And I think that's what we're seeing. And of course, watch them make the signing tomorrow, and then this, right?
We'll have a good clip. It'll make for a good clip.
PJ's summer of errors.
Yeah. BC Place. Wow.
Oh my.
Oh my. Whoa. I mean, it sounds like Minister Ravi Kahlon got his hand slapped when he was talking about selling BC Place to the Whitecaps. Because as soon as the Lions were interested, all of a sudden BC Place wasn't for sale. Is that?
The amount of listen, like, when CBC Radio starts calling, people are kind of going, whoa. Listen, when he brought it up, like, we were discussing sort of where things were. We were 13 minutes into a 15-minute interview, and we talked about the buzz of the World Cup and what had gone well and all the sort of things from his perspective. And he's a guy, obviously he's an Olympian, and like, he knows sports like this. He's not a dummy when it comes to this world. So when he sort of said, lease or perhaps even purchase, I can't remember what the quote was, but and I was just like, wait, what? And I went back and I said, I'm kind of surprised to hear you say this, because that's not been something that's ever been part of sort of your guys' frame. You guys have always said this is a community asset and it's important for us to control it. And he said, listen, it is not something we would say no to. Like, it has to be framed right, the right parameters, I think is what he said, right? Which was clearly like, you're assuming the debt and you're also paying for some back. You're paying us for the value that we've added to this stadium. The stadium is now, eminently a world-class facility, and we want to take credit for that. So it's not like they're going to pass it off for nothing. And so I was like, okay. And I thought I made that pretty clear in the story. And I thought Farhan's report on Amar Doman, expressing interests, referenced the same thing, that, in the end, this is a guy that the government isn't immediately hanging the phone up. Like, I don't think they are clearly not walking around selling the place, right? They're not calling up Sakaris and Price and say, would you buy the stadium? They're not calling up whoever, would you buy the stadium? They're not, but if people want to say we're interested in talking about this, they're not saying no, but they're also making it, I think, plainly clear that, like, this is not a freebie, right? Like, the taxpayers need to be recognized here, and the taxpayers, and I suppose that comes back to why I guess there's been some backtracking. And I got the call from the president of the BCGEO saying, we don't want to see this happen. This is
well, of course not. All their employees. I mean, if you're a union and you don't protect your jobs, you cease to be a union.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the most obvious.
Anyway. Give us credit. We're doing a great job. And also that they, basically are like, wow, maybe this will happen, right? Like, it would have been almost not news if he'd said, no, this is crazy. Yeah. I don't know what the minister's talking about, but like, they reached out.
That's a good point. They're speaking on this, which makes it a little more real. Yeah. Look, like on one side, and we saw the Bob Mackin produce the assessment of BC Place. And, the bottom line is the assessment says in 2026, the stadium's worth about $150 million. The land's worth about $70 million. Yeah. Now, the assessment doesn't take into account the renos that we saw this year for FIFA. Yeah. So that certainly adds some value. And of course, there's the debt servicing, which Minister Kahlon has talked about from the jump here, and rightfully so, protecting the interest of BC. taxpayers, you can't just participate in the revenues. You do have to participate in the costs, which includes some debt servicing. But I saw the number 300 million floated around last week, and I'm like, well, that's kind of double the cost of Patrick, a money-losing operation for the government, right? Running BC Place. It doesn't make money. It loses money.
Yep.
And secondly, as Blake says, you put in a new kitchen. Okay, it adds some value for a little bit, but it doesn't take long for that, whatever you think you've put into it for it to depreciate. And then all of a sudden the new kitchen doesn't matter so much. So, it's not like the renos to BC Place are going to age well from a value point of view, albeit the land will age well, I suspect, from a value point of view. We had people saying to us last week, just sell the stadium, do like a 99-year lease on the stadium, keep the land for BC taxpayers and get out of the money-losing gig that is running BC Place.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I ended up talking to a couple of unknown development and people who work on sort of construction stuff. And in the end, you make the point that said, listen, it's not a conventional plot of land because there's already a stadium on it, right? Like to redevelop conceivably, like nobody's going to touch this because blowing up the stadium would be such an expensive project that it is going to be a stadium for a very long time, right? Like there is next to no risk of that being pulled down anytime soon and it becoming a bunch of towers. So it's an unusual purchase from that standpoint. But yeah, I heard the idea of the 99 lease floated or whatever. Like you're selling the stadium, the building itself is where the value is. Right now, the land might be assessed as something, but right now that land is worthless because there's a stadium on it, right? If you were able to say we are going to blow this stadium, which would cost hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Not just in sort of the very act of safely blowing it up, but the disposal, the removal, all that stuff. Like there's just a lot of stuff you got to get rid of, and then remediation, all kinds of things. Like getting it to a point where it could be built on is so onerous that it is unlikely to ever happen. So yeah, it comes back to what's the value in this operation, which depending on how you count, either breaks even or loses some money. And the breaking even, by the way, it used to be a bigger subsidy. Now those concerts, the doubling of concerts has made a difference. And I do think the Whitecaps believe that they could do even more, right? And, switching to a winter season will make a difference in this. There will now be weekends in the summer where you can book summer concerts that have always been harder to book because you have the Lions and Whitecaps, right? Like there are reasons to think why this stadium actually becomes even more lucrative the further we go down the years, because presumably if the Whitecaps stay, you have your Whitecaps, you have your Lions, and then you can book concerts year round, right? Like you talk about having 15 concerts, the margins on those kinds of shows is incredible, right? And that's where your sponsorship stuff, all this stuff builds out. Now, whether you can actually build it up to bridge that huge gap that Axel has talked so much about, I don't know. But there's certainly a belief. I think that's part of the reason why they've been looking at wanting to do something with changing the relationship with the stadium.
So we had Axel on the show earlier. You're batting number 2 in the lineup here today. Executive decision. Sorry about that. But Axel tells us we didn't deny that they would want to buy BC Place because he's for solutions that fixes the revenue problem. He told us he knows Arthur Griffiths. He has lovely conversations with Arthur at the Canucks alumni event once a year, but didn't want to get into the details of the bid. But, Murph reported it's an advanced bid, right? He said the owner doesn't have to be local, but does have to be committed to this market. And he said 90 groups have gotten access to their data room with Goldman Sachs, which is
That's a big turn.
That's a big number.
And 89 have been scared off, apparently.
And he said, look, there's no time deadline. They're selling tickets for the 2027 Sprint MLS season, but if nothing changes soon, they have to conclude is anything going to change.
Because
your reaction to all that. Especially the Arthur
listen.
part.
Well, let's start at the end. No, I'll just say quickly. Listen. Part of the reason why we're here is because ownership's been losing a lot of money, and at a certain point, they just won't want to do that anymore, and then it may become MLS's problem. At a certain level, it already is MLS's problem. The 90 is remarkable because not so long ago it was only 30. There have been 100 and some people who called and said, "Oh, what's up?" But only 30 had been let in the door. So that tells you they're much more. They're being much more, I suppose, aggressive in their conversations of saying, "Okay, are you interested? Here you go." Like maybe Sakaris and Price could get in the door. I don't know how I've turned you guys into sports investors.
Yeah,
but,
You keep doing that. You seem to have a perverse notion of the financial backing of this small business, Patrick. We have 2 employees. You're sitting beside one of them. The other one's in the other office.
Anyway, it's a growing, expanding business. It's diversifying.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah.
Do you think Arthur is serious? Do you think the Arthur thing is serious? Because I was going a little pushback on that, as I mentioned.
Let's put it this way. I had heard something a couple months ago that made me think, is that Arthur Griffiths? Like, I didn't have Arthur said to me, but there was bits about it that made me wonder. Because, listen, he's a guy that, obviously is not nearly as wealthy as he used to be. I don't think he really was ever in the wealth range that he could have even bought the Whitecaps in the old days. We saw how marginal everything was, and the Grizzlies blew him up, basically. But he knows people, right? And he's stayed connected in the world, and he's stayed connected, and he knows sports. And there's a reason why he's still involved with the Canucks alumni. And his heart's in the right place. I mean, let's not forget he was involved in the early stages of Vanok, right? Like his heart's in the right place. So I had sort of heard this notion. Okay, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I wonder. So I've been chasing after Arthur for a couple months. Let's be honest. I can report that he has not answered the phone, and I generally have been able to get Arthur on the phone. So I was not.
There's some
surprised.
there. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was not surprised when I returned from my camping trip to discover that Murph had thrown his name out there as somebody maybe around in the realm. Now, listen, I think he would be connected with me. He'd be sort of a local person on the ground who's got connections. He has global business connections, right? So he would surely be representing people far afield, right? So that's what's interesting to me, and that's why I've been trying to chase after him, is trying to get a sense of that. Because, the Whitecaps as position, part of the reason why you assume they really wouldn't want to leave, or Major League Soccer wouldn't want to leave, is, that term that Tom Manick loves throwing out, the global Pacific Gateway City, like that there's interest in this place as being beyond just North America. It's part of why Thomas Muller was such a good fit coming here, right? Like they're sort of peering over the horizon to Asia and trying to sort of stand the team up over there. There's always that kind of ambition. So, it's got.
I mean, we saw it here with the Korean. Yeah. We saw it with the Korean community on Saturday, turning up for Sonny. We've seen it in the past with the Korean and the Japanese community, and of course the Japanese keeper. But more than just a gateway market, it is one of the most historical and well-attended, best commercial markets in North America for the beautiful game. So there's a lot of reasons to want to stay. And there's a new MLS commissioner now to succeed Garber. So, maybe the position softens.
And as I've said before, just quickly, as I said before, like they put 40,000 people in on Saturday. We saw the World Cup. What up to 6 games now over 20, or 5 games now over 25,000. Like the idea that you can't make that work is absurd. And like other prospective MLS investors will go, what is going on here? And start asking questions just how things are lined up. So again, I think that's partly why I've been sort of weirdly confident, even if they're struggling to actually nail somebody down to invest in the team, that this team is not going anywhere. And I continue to feel that way. So,
all right. Great stuff. Welcome home. Good conversation. Hey. Look forward to more of them going forward here.
All right. Be well, fellas.
Sakaris and Price from the historic Wall Center, the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. Tickets secured, hotel solved. Make the Wall Center your downtown headquarters for every big game, concert, and rivalry night. See what's happening at wallcenter.com. We will get back to some soccer in a moment, but first, Jeff, my goodness, we were at the Seas in the new Canadian Club patio on Thursday night. And guys start checking their phones. What's going on in the world of sports? The British Columbia Lions were what was going on. With a new franchise rushing record in a 35-19 defeat of the Blue Bombers in Winnipeg before a big crowd on Thursday, 377 yards. Like, is Army playing Navy here? That's a service academy total. And the catalyst is new quarterback Caden Salter, his first CFL start for the raw rookie out of the University of Colorado. He nets 160 of those 377 rushing yards. It's a record for a Lions quarterback. And the rushing record itself stood for 57 years, Jeff.
I saw that.
You're going back to 1969 when the Lions last had this many rushing yards in a game. Xander Horvath starting at tailback for an injured James Butler. He goes for 191 yards. Even Amani Bailey got in on the action. He chipped in with 26. Horvath delivered the death blow with a long touchdown rush, less than 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That put the Leos up 8. Salter passed for 96 yards and a touchdown. Defense gave up 107 to Brady Oliveira, but just 300 total yards. They stiffened in the red zone. And the BC Lions got a big road win when they needed it most.
Well, and I was one of those guys in the ballpark, checked my phone, and I was caught up in all these individual accomplishments and really wasn't following along with the score. I knew the Lions were ahead, but when I saw the final score and the margin of victory, as you said, in Winnipeg, good on them. And I mean, I feel a little bit for Chase Price, but he had his chance, didn't make the most of it. Right. And now you have to be excited about Caden Salter, I think, and let's not get ahead of ourselves and declare him the next one. They already have the next one in Nathan Rourke. So this
who's still looking good on the comeback trail
right,
here.
But it allows them, I think, just to breathe a little bit here and feel that they can get a job done with Caden Salter. And they're playing a Hamilton team that is having its fair share of struggles here.
Destitute at quarterback, yes.
Yeah, opportunity knocking again, and now it feels like there's no real sense to rush Nathan Rourke back to save the season. There's still a lot of football to be played. And so, 2-5, not a great record, but it certainly beats 1-6, and it allows them now to string back-to-back wins together at home and maybe get a little traction so that when Nathan's ready, he can jump right back in.
Well, it does so many things, as you say. It allows Rourke to fully rehabilitate here. It gives you a change of pace quarterback, to say the least, in game if you want to see how the opposition is going to handle a quarterback who's going to run around. I mean, it could very well secure something down the road if Rourke gets hurt again this year. And look, I think it's important to note, the quarterback's job at some point is to sit in the pocket and deliver the football accurately down the field. 96 yards passing is not a great total. It seemed they were very, very confident and happy to let him rush the football, a little less so throwing the football. There's some film out on him now. Opposing defenses and coordinators will be looking at how they did all of this and making their adjustments and prepping. I'm not sure this is a week-over-week formula,
No.
but holy cow, was it fun. I mean, when you got two guys going for $150 plus on the ground, you don't see that a whole lot in the CFL with the big wide open field. And it was just marvelous entertainment watching these guys.
But also, you're a raw rookie, your eyes are wide open, the bright lights play to your strengths, right?
Absolutely. No, for sure.
And
for
so
sure.
they did that.
Really well handled by Buck Pearson, the coaching staff, on Thursday. They're 2-5 now, home Saturday to face those Tiger Cats at BC Place at 4 p.m. And I also want to shout out Tyson Philpott. Jeff and I are old enough to remember Dad, Corey, who was a fantastic player for the Lions. Montreal Alouettes receiver Tyson Philpott, the fastest Canadian player to hit 1,000 yards receiving in a season. He's from Delta. Of course, he's already got a Grey Cup winning touchdown catch on his resume, but he needed just the 8 games this year to hit 1,000 receiving yards. It ties a CFL record as well, set by Hal Patterson and Terry Greer. We also remember Greer. I think Patterson was before us, Patterson. But Terry Greer did it 43 years ago. So, Philpott, congratulations to the Delta product. He leads the entire loop in receiving yards by 230.
That's a hell of an accomplishment. I mean,
It
let's
is.
do the simple math. 1,000 yards in 8 games. Like, there's a consistency to that. There's
$1.25 a game.
Exactly.
That is a lot of receiving yards to do that consistently game over game. All right, Major League Baseball trade deadline where the Blue Jays remake their team. A little bit of this year and a little bit of last year. This was the deadline about stockpiling 2027 as much as it was selling off the 2026 pieces. They swing 6 trades. They send out unrestricted free agents to be Kevin Gausman and Dalton Varsho. They deal Jeff Hoffman to Minnesota for prospects, and they acquire starting pitching in the form of Jose Soriano from the Angels, Spencer Arrighetti from the Astros, and Jamison Taillon, a Canadian, from the Cubs. They also get infielder Josh Smith from Texas. In the process, they said goodbye to some at-the-Nat favorites over the years. Arjun Nimmala, the star shortstop, top prospect, of course, the first player of Indian descent drafted in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. He and Eddie Micheletti, and boy, did they love chanting Eddie, Eddie at the Nat. They go to the Angels in the Soriano deal. We also lose Vancouver resident Adam Mako, the Canadian-Slovak pitcher, lefty, former C, of course, made his Major League debut, got a win at Yankee Stadium earlier this year. We had Adam on the program a few weeks ago. He is sent to Texas in the Smith deal. How about this? Kevin Gausman's next start lines up for Thursday. It's a makeup game against the Jays at Wrigley, a one-off, so that could be quite a storyline. Soriano and Arrighetti are likely rotation pieces for 2027 for the Jays, and Smith has been a valuable utility guy at 4 different positions for the Rangers before landing on tougher times at the plate this season. The Jays did not move George Springer. He's a 10-5 guy, 10 years in the majors, 5 years with the same team. When you achieve that in baseball, you get to veto any kind of trades. So George Springer remains. So does Shane Bieber. So does Max Scherzer. I watched both games Saturday, Sunday, thinking this should be the last start for Gausman and the last start for Scherzer. Both pitched very well against the Cardinals. Team is 4 back with 6 clubs to jump in the wild card race, but Baltimore and Detroit were pure sellers, so maybe they get out of the way. And the American League has been so dog's breakfast this year, Jeff, that, really a couple of good weeks you can get into this.
A couple things. Great scene on Saturday after Gausman was pulled, and you knew he was going to get that reaction. Look, people that have watched me sit in for Blake through the years know that I was pulling for the Mariners to win the World Series last year. Mm-hmm. And when the Blue Jays beat them, I didn't exactly switch my allegiance to this country's only ball club. But I said then, and I'll say it again, that last year's Toronto Blue Jays were a likable bunch. And so if they had gone on to win the World Series, I would have been happy for all my friends that were Jays fans. And it wasn't that I was pulling against the Jays in the World Series. I just didn't have that same
You're not bitter,
affinity.
Jeff. There's some bitter Mariners fans out there, but thank you for being non-bitter.
I like the component parts of that Jays team, and Gausman was at the top of the list, and you heard it again in his post-game remarks on Saturday, Matt, talking about how, he's always going to be a Blue Jay, and how much it meant to him to spend the time that he did. And he just said a lot of things that a lot of guys don't say when they're on their way out the door. And he just seemed like a good guy. He just seemed like an honest dude who, an exceptional pitcher. And so we all knew that they had to make some of these moves, but it was a nice scene there at Rogers Center as he walked off the mound.
Look, Kevin Gausman was a terrific Blue Jay. On the surface, you may look at it and say it's a 500 record. 4 of the 5 seasons he pitched for the Jays were quite good. He made 7 postseason starts, winning games of the World Series and the ALCS. Not a lot of guys in club history have done that. But also, I'm going to say that Kevin Gausman and, frankly, Max Scherzer and the Scherzer family and the Gausman family at large are 2 of the seminal players responsible for this turnaround we've seen. Whereas before Toronto was an outpost, the only Canadian market guys didn't want to go there, to Toronto being a destination, to players wanting to play for the Blue Jays, much like we saw in the era leading up to their back-to-back World Series wins in 92 and 93, where they were known as a best-in-class organization. The Gosman family also, a tutorial on get out, explore your new digs, post to social media, and you will
Along the
be
lines
absolutely...
of what Thomas Muller has done here in Vancouver.
Very much so. Masterclass in that regard.
Embrace the city, and the city will embrace you. And he's
Absolutely.
done that. Does Minnesota, by the way, they know it's buyer beware with Jeff Hoffman?
I think they know it's buyer beware with Jeff Hoffman, who had been very good for a couple of months here, getting over all his struggles. I saw one Blue Jays fan say, I know he's been great for 2 months. I can't get over the past. And, of course, the World Series last year where utility infielder takes him deep in Game 7. Your Mariners were quieter, but they make 2 deals as well. Trading former ace Luis Castillo to the White Sox for relief pitcher Sir Anthony Dominguez, who was part of that Blue Jays World Series run last year. Nolan Jones, once a top prospect, more a quad A outfielder now. That's a good catching prospect, though, at Double-A. Boston Smith, heard many good things about him. And yesterday they had Taylor Ward, the outfielder from the Baltimore Orioles, for 3 relief arms, 2 of them in the minors. M's are only 2 out in the AL West. They're only 2 out in the wild card. They did improve their bullpen and their right-handed hitting, and that had been the stated goal heading into this deadline. So we'll see how they go from here. I should mention 2 of the Jays prospects acquired during deadline seasons could well be assigned to the Vancouver Canadians. We'll see. Shortstop Ty Salvacine, who came over from the Cubs in the Gosman deal. Light hitting, but he's got plenty of speed. Little guy, too. I'm sure he'll be an underdog and favorite. And left-handed pitcher Dasan Hill, 99-mile-per-hour fastball. He came over from Minnesota in the Hoffman trade. Both of them were at high A with their respective organizations. We'll see if they'll go straight to Vancouver. And speaking of the Seas, they get a thunderous victory Sunday after a short rain delay. They beat Spokane 14-0. This is a football game, Jeff. A couple of converted touchdowns. They snap a 3-game slide. They are away this week, but just 12 home games remaining. And you're going to want to get tickets because the popularity of this team, this ballpark, and a summer night out at the Nat in Vancouver. Next Tuesday is 75-cent hot dog night. Also scarf giveaway night presented by Cloverdale Paint. You got fireworks post-game next Thursday, a nooner next Friday, a backpack giveaway next weekend on this 6-game homestand, games Tuesday through Sunday. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. Back on soccer, we do have a schedule announced now for the Canadian Championship. Of course, the Caps are the 4-time defending reigning champions of the TELUS Canadian Championship, Voyageurs Cup. It is Vancouver versus CF Montreal in one semifinal. The opening leg is going to take place Wednesday, September 2nd at BC Place, so get your tickets there. The return leg is Wednesday, September 16th at Stade Saputo in Montreal. The winner of this semifinal series will not only advance to the championship, but it will host the single-game final. You have Atletico Ottawa and the Supra Club in the CPL, all CPL semi, who are contesting the other side of the bracket. Global soccer, what a soap opera you've been. I mean, we thought all the drama was on the pitch during the World Cup, and then Spain lifted the trophy, and we were just getting started. FIFA has now scrapped plans for this $20 billion World Cup sell-off to private interests. This following a European boycott and, of course, outrage from all the different federations. There is also now a lack of confidence in President Gianni Infantino, who hatched this harebrained scheme. Rob Harris of Sky Sports in the UK reporting that Victor Montagliani of Vancouver, the FIFA vice president, there's Vic, and CONCACAF president could be Infantino's successor. Could you imagine?
Well,
it's
no.
truly one of the most powerful posts in all of global sport.
I was thinking
Vic
about
from
this.
down the street.
Totally. And I was thinking about this over the weekend. Man, we could be living in a world where we have an American Pope and a Canadian running FIFA.
Unbelievable. I'm not sure Infantino's going to survive this. So, we'll see. Dick Pound got close to IOC presidency, which is another one of the big, powerful posts in global sport. If you told me that Victor Montagliani will one day be the FIFA president, I am buying that action right now because of how well Victor is liked. Speaking of soccer and legacy here, Henrik Sedin's son, Walter, he scored his first competitive goal for Canada as our U20 national team draws 2-2 with Jamaica at the CONCACAF Under-20 tournament in Mexico. There's young Walter with his dad when his dad won the Hart Trophy. Oh, my God. Fantastic. Canada now advances to the knockout stage of this tournament. They will play Jamaica again tomorrow in a tournament quarterfinal. The winner of this tournament earns a berth to the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. But if Canada wins tomorrow, it means it qualifies for its first U20 World Cup in 20 years, and that was hosted in Canada all those years ago, Jeff. So, boy, another sign of the Canadian Soccer Development Project if we get into the U20 World Cup.
Yeah,
Needless to
lots
say.
to play for there.
Needless to say, if we get in the Olympics as well. It's a very small field in the Olympics, so it's a very difficult tournament to qualify for. And be still Jeff's heart. He's a big tennis guy, and, of course, for years he worked and helped out the good folks at the Odlum Brown Vancouver Open. There was some weather on the weekend, but they got it all through. Congratulations to third seed Taylor Preston. She tops the 8th seed Madison Inglis. It was an all-Aussie final on the women's singles side of things. And then on the men's side, boy, talk about a grinder. You got to feel good for this guy in this story. American J.J. Wolf, he wins the men's singles draw at the Odlum Brown. His first ATP Challenger title since 2021, 5 years ago.
That is grinding with a
away.
capital G. That is at that level.
Well, take us inside there. You're familiar with sort of the ATP Challenger side of things.
It's been years since I've been involved, but even back then, I was always amazed at the players that were in their mid to late 20s that were. Again, this is the minor leagues of tennis. This is far from the bright lights of center court at Wimbledon. And yet it's part of the ladder that you have to climb to get to that next level. And, the costs are the costs. Hotels and flights and everything else. And, they've got family backing, a lot of them. Some of them have some sponsor support. But every dollar matters. And so to go 5 years between titles at that level, and even the payout for winning an event like this one, it's money in the pocket, but nobody's getting rich at that level. And so good on him. Hope that he enjoyed his time in Vancouver. I'm sure he did, coming away the champ. And as you saw in that photo for the people that are watching, the men's final moved indoors because of the weather. The women were outdoors, but the men, they got interrupted. They actually had to move the final indoors at Hollyburn.
And we got a local winner as well, Alexandra Vagramov of Port Moody. Part of the women's doubles team with her American partner. They were unseeded and they defeated the second seed, an American pair, in a tiebreaker to win the women's doubles. Congratulations to Alexandra. One other local sporting note here. Congratulations to the Vancouver Bandits. What a fantastic season they have had in the CEBL, including a statement win on the weekend. The Bandits beat the Winnipeg Sea Bears 114-90. They clinched top spot in the CEBL West, and they host a conference semifinal this Thursday, August 6th, against Edmonton at the LEC. Congratulations to the Bandits.
Bring it on home, Bandits.
Yeah, we're on the verge of a championship, lifting the trophy out there at the LEC. Last bit of business, because we have no E's and O's.
Well done.
Or at least there was no noted from Thursday. Yerke, Colin, they didn't write anything in. It is results of our Nation Gear poll question from Thursday. Do you believe a Major League Baseball team is coming to Vancouver? We're going to talk more about that this week. You're in with me this week, but we asked them on Thursday, do you believe a Major League Baseball team is coming to Vancouver? Yes or no? People said...
I'm going to say overwhelming no, somewhere in the low 72.
77 no, Jeff. Rod says, this is so delusional, I've decided not to comment. Okay. The more digging you do on this, the less delusional it becomes. Pavel says, absolutely not while the government and various Aboriginal bands interest groups are still fighting over who owns the land. Well, may well be that some of the First Nations are involved. Just saying. And Colin in planning says, is this a wrinkle in the BC places for sale discussion? They would have different needs for the stadium than the Lions and Whitecaps in terms of configuration. But could a group buying an MLB bid have the means to renovate the stadium? I am told, Colin, they are not linked in any way, shape,
I don't think
or
MLB would
form.
grant an expansion team to play at BC Play.
No,
I think they would demand
they have to. Yeah, they have to have their own stadium, and I do not believe that any kind of stadium configuration or planning to be able to take on a tenant or two tenants, especially soccer and football, are a part of this. Alas, I know Blake's been talking about that for, really? Can we not solve two birds, one stone? I would love to, but I don't believe that is part of the program.
Back like the Oakland Alameda Coliseum.
Yeah, how did that turn out for them? Some good football and baseball teams there in the 70s, alas.
Football always looked terrible with the base, the infield, and the dirt.
Can you remember it? All those stadiums.
Yeah.
The Orange Bowl in Miami, Jack Murphy in San Diego, Cincinnati at Riverfront, Candlestick. Anaheim Stadium. September football was played as much in the dirt of a baseball infield as it was on actual grass. And that was the NFL, Jeff. And not that long ago. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific weekdays. We got 3 shows this week, today, tomorrow, Thursday. And of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about and keep it local.